I'm AC Brown, and you're listening to Is My Aura On Straight, a podcast designed to help you start living from your core instead of your conditioning. Each week, we'll discuss topics ranging from human design, astrology, metaphysics, spiritual self-development, and everything in between. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Is My Aura On Straight. I am your host, AC Brown. I am your spiritual doula, intuitive strategist, psychic channel, and human design expert, and I help you discover, nurture, and amplify your aura through the power of human design and spiritual self-development. And I want to thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Is My Aura On Straight. As you can see from the title of the podcast, we are talking about your ego or your heart center. Now, hopefully you have your chart in front of you. If you don't and you're listening to it, you already know that you either have a undefined or a defined ego/heart center. And that is the little red triangle or white triangle if it's undefined in your chart. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because your ego center, it really is the key to some of your self-worth issues. As you can see from the title, it has a lot to do with money. It's about influence. It's about power in our lives. It's the center for business. It's the center for family. It is where we might feel threatened by other people. We can even feel threatened by ourselves or about our feelings about other people. It's about where we make promises and commitments to, if we have the willpower to do so, and if we do not. Now, I wanted to talk about this because of the power that is surrounding your ego center, the influence that it has on you, on others, how you do business, all of that. And so if you have an undefined ego, you want to listen very closely. That is why I have an undefined ego, but I've dealt with my ego and heart kind of issues in my self-worth. I've learned about that, and it's actually helped me dealing with some of my dark childhood issues surrounding self-worth, surrounding those things that have stopped me from being in certain financial positions that I wanted to be in, or having certain power that I wanted to have. And what I mean by power, I mean personal power, not tyrant kind of powerful, kind of ego driven power, but more personal power over myself and who I am and what I stand for and what I believe in. And that's what I mean by power in the ego center, not being a pushover, not letting people take advantage of you, having that self-power and that empowerment in yourself. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I think it's so important as we go into a new year. As you listen to this, this is when it is, when you listen to it, or whenever you do, whatever time you do listen to this in your life, you might be going through something where, your self-worth is being tested, or you're trying to figure out why you don't have the things that you want to have, or you're not where you want to be, and your ego and your self-worth can come into play with that. And I wanted to talk not just to undefined egos, because undefined egos really have the biggest issue with finding their worth and discovering their worth and standing firm into who they are and commanding the amount of money they want to have, not doing things for free, not always bartering stuff. Undefined egos do have that issue. I love defined egos because they don't have that issue, and you can learn a lot. But also the gates that are around the ego center are really important for you to acknowledge, and for you to try and I don't want to say take control over, but you want to learn how to master them based off of where you are in your life. Now, undefined egos, like I said, they have the biggest kind of issues when it comes to self-worth, feeling worthy, always feeling like they have to prove themselves, or they'll be outcast or kicked out of something, or not belonging somewhere. So all open egos sometimes can become a little thirsty, not on purpose, but they can become a little bit thirsty. I know in my 20s and my late teens, I was a little thirsty, especially in the relationship department. Not in an unhealthy way, but in a desire to have people like me, especially the opposite sex. I did not do anything that devalued my integrity, because I'm just not that child. I wasn't that child. I was not easily influenced. However, when it came to romantic relationships, I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be liked in a certain way. And so a lot of undefined egos do kind of experience that. And I started working. It's so funny because people always ask me, oh, like, you're so self-aware. I've been reading self-help books probably since I was 15. I know that, Brian, that sounds really weird, but I always wanted to master myself. Even from a younger age than that, I've always had a very self-aware kind of a perspective about who I was and who I wanted to be. And I knew that I could find those answers through books or through training programs, or, I, would read so many things and study stuff to find out more, to get more information. And so I, thank goodness, was aware of my self-esteem issues or my self-worth issues early on. So I started working on them early on. But the book that I recommend to anyone who has self-worth issues, open ego centers, is a book by Nancy Levine. It's called Worthy. You can either buy it on Audible or on Amazon. Just get the book. I find this book so helpful. Her story, and just about, and especially for my women reading this, but men, you can read it too. It's such a good book. But that really helped me when it came to that, when it came to self-worth issues later on in life. But I started working on that early on. But anyway, going back to undefined egos, they do try to prove themselves over and over again. And it's when you have an undefined ego, it's a blow to try and prove yourself constantly, to try and prove yourself to be worthy of someone else's attention, of someone else's praise. And so I would say, stop doing that. Stop trying to prove that you're brave. Stop trying to prove that you're worthy. Don't try and prove anything to anyone. Prove it to yourself. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that undefined egos do and defined egos do that are not good. And we're going to talk about some of the gates that are around them. Because even if you have a defined ego, which means that you have a constant access to your willpower, and that you have a very natural sense of who you are, undefined egos are sort of the opposite, in that how can I put this? Undefined egos can be conditioned a lot more with their self-worth, with their trying to be down. Like I said, I call that the thirsty center. You can be a little bit thirsty, even though you can have what I call the thirsty gate. The thirsty gate, which is gate 40, which is a part of that now. Some people are like, oh, that, it doesn't mean that. It means deliverance. It means loneliness. I just call it thirsty, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's talk about undefined egos. So undefined egos, in its natural kind of essence of who an undefined ego really should strive to be, it's having no kind of urge to have will. That doesn't mean that you don't have any willpower. You just cannot be hard on yourself, which is a challenge. That is very, very challenging, because what happens with undefined egos, where they find themselves trapped in, is comparing themselves to other people, is trying to overachieve in life. They are driven by things that are not healthy for them, meaning that anything where they can get external praise from. So they try to be competitive with people. They, sometimes don't even go after things because they don't want to fail. They also, make promises that they can't keep. And so what happens with undefined egos, it's really important for undefined egos to kind of give a little, loosen up those, purse strings when it comes to putting pressure on yourself is what I'm saying. So because what an undefined ego really needs to move towards is to not make promises to yourself, not to make promises to other people. Now that doesn't mean you can't set goals, but you have to find a balance of, this is my goal, but if I don't attain it, I'm going to be okay, but I'm still going to work towards it. Knowing that you don't have to prove anything to anyone, not trying to find love or attach to people. That's really important. It's important for undefined egos to know that it's okay if everyone doesn't like them. Know that it's okay to command what they're worth in their pricing. Those type of things. That's really important. Now for my defined egos, it's totally different. Defined egos, their goal is to, be in a consistent state of will, being in a consistent state of power within themselves. Sometimes undefined egos, what will happen is that they can sometimes be very wary of other people for no reason, because they think it might take away from something from them. They will they'll shy away from other people if they feel that they are trying to be controlled, or if their opinions or anything are being suppressed. They also can, I would say, shy away from working. I don't want to say working because that's wrong. I want to say that defined egos have somewhat, I don't want to say an issue. They have somewhat of an issue with letting people assist them in their journeys of, and that's the same thing with control, in their journeys, their goals. They want to do everything themselves. However, the good thing about defined egos is that they really don't have pricing issues when it comes to money and business. And if you are a defined ego and you find yourself not commanding with your worth or having money problems, it stems from a childhood issue. What I've noticed in human design is that anyone who is completely opposite from what their centers are, especially if you have an open center and you don't have those negative things that are attached with the open center, that means that you've healed from whatever and that you've dealt with it. So you're on the other side. But if you have a defined center and you are not the positive sides of that defined center, you usually haven't dealt with something in your past. That's my opinion. But that's just what I've seen in reading charts for so long, and so many charts. People who have definition in their charts who cannot relate to the positive sides of those centers usually haven't dealt with their childhood issues, those inner wounds. So for my defined egos who find themselves constantly being in a cycle of not having enough money, or not being able to get a grasp on money, or not making enough money, it's usually something that stems from your childhood. Because naturally, most people that I know, or charts that I've read, who have defined ego centers, they don't have money issues. They're usually making what they're worth. They feel good about the money that they're bringing in. They feel good about the personal power that they have regarding finances and career and business. That's the positive side of that, what a defined ego really wants to go towards, because defined egos have a natural self-esteem with them. So they're able to, command with their worth. They're able to thrive when it comes to making deals on their behalf. And it's so funny. I always tell, especially entrepreneurs who have undefined egos, to find someone with a defined ego to look at their pricing for them. Because usually a defined ego is going to say that their pricing is too low. It's very interesting, but I always suggest that, and someone who I'm going to have on a podcast, hopefully, she talks about this as well. So that's what defined egos, need to be going towards is, a natural state of self-esteem, really commanding their worth. They always do that. Now, some of the gates around the ego center I'm going to talk about because I think they're really important to touch on. These gates, you might have, now some of you probably like, well, what's a gate? What does that mean? The gate are the lines that are connected to the center. So if it's a hanging gate or it's a channel that's connected to another gate, but we're just going to talk about the gates in this center because actually the heart center has only 4 gates, and it is extremely important for the 4 gates because these 4 gates are very important in human design and when it comes to power, when it comes to money. So we're going to talk about the first gate, which is gate 21, which is the control gate or management or the treasurer, some people call it. Gate 21 is connected to the money channel. It is part of the money channel, but people who have gate 21, they demand control over money, over property. I always tell people who have gate 21 who don't budget that they need to budget because they would be great at it, because people who have gate 21 are the best budgeters on earth. Because that is the gate of controlling of money for the collective, for the community, for whatever money, just managing the money. And so what happens is that people who don't manage their money properly, who usually have this gate, they're just in fear of being controlled by something, by a system or systematic or society or something like that. They don't want to have that control over them, but it's good for you all to make sure you are doing that because that's important for you to do that. Now, the next gate is, and like I said, because what happens is, well, before I go in there, because what happens with the gates, especially in the ego center, is that it's either going to be, like I said, it's going to be a flip, a 2-coin kind of thing. So people are going to love to be in control, or they're going to be afraid or hate to be in control with gate 21. Now, gate 51 is what we like to call in human design the arousing gate or shock. And meaning that arousing, not like sexually, but more shocking, and to shock people, to arouse people, to get people riled up. That's what that means. And so people who have gate 51, especially those who are thought leaders in positions of power, in position of leadership somewhere, don't be afraid to shock people. That is part of who you should be, who you are, what you should be doing, to get people to buy into what you're selling, what you're doing, what you're advocating for. Because, like I said, there's 2 sides to the coin. People who have this gate 51, they either they have to be brave, or they're afraid that they will do things that are dumb, and that people won't like. So that's important. Now, gate 26 is one of my favorite gates. When people have gate 26, I just tell them, you have the whole world in your hands and you don't know it. Because gate 26 is about accumulation. It's one of the wealth or money gates that I consider money gates. There's a few, but the gate 26 is the accumulation gate. It's very wealthy. It's very prestige. It's a very power status gate. And when you have this gate, the hardest thing is probably having this gate and then having an open / undefined ego center. And that is because you have this idea of the wealth that you want to attain, the things that you want to have, but then you also have the same subconscious of, do I deserve it all? That's why it's very important for especially people who have either gate 21 or gate 26, who just have the hanging gates, who have undefined ego centers, is to really deal with your mindset, with your wealth mindset, with your money mindset, with your worthy mindset, because you have the potential and you have the tools to get what you want. So like I said, the two sides to the gate 26 is that I'm the best, I'm the greatest. And then the opposite side is that they try and look good to people. They'll do anything to look good to people, not look good like physically, like appearance wise, but look good graces, kind of looking good. And then you have gate 40, which I call the thirsty gate. And don't take offense to that, but gate 4, whoever does have gate 40. And the reason gate 40 is about deliverance or loneliness, but it's a deep willingness, or someone who struggles with being alone. So they're technically a natural loner, but they seek to be with others. But I've noticed that people who have this particular gate can come off a little thirsty. And thirsty, not in a bad way, but thirsty as in they attach to people and things, especially status wise, to try and add to them instead of trying to cultivate that on their own. And so the two signs to this gate is about, being too loyal to people, or they must be loyal to people. And then the other side is, they don't trust themselves. So they look to others to find that trust in. And so a lot of these, the reason why I'm talking about the gates around the center, and I'll be doing some more center talks and gate talks around these centers, is because this gate is almost like, if you want to think about, and here's a good analogy, me and my analogies, I think if I probably would have got through, if there was a teacher in college who just taught in analogies, I would have probably had a 4.0, because that's how much I understand things through analogies. And that's why I always have analogies. So I sort of associate the ego center and the heart center with your moon, like your moon sign in astrology, because your moon sign is it's attached to money, and it's attached to things so much that your ego center, your heart center, is the same, especially if what gates you have around it. You want to keep that in mind. So look at your chart, find out what gates you have around it, and look back into this and see how that plays a part in what you're doing and your power, and how you're accumulating power, how you want power. Like I said, my gate 21s and my gate 26 people, that is about money and about prestige and power and control and wealth. So you want to get that under control. You want to get that, I don't want to say get it under control, but you want to do the things to get you where you need to go. Gate 51, if anybody has gate 51, you are here to shock people, to arouse people through your messaging, through the way that you do things, through your leadership. So don't shy away from that. And then my gate 40 people, which I call, the thirsty gate, it's not about you being thirsty. I always recommend people who have gate 40 to try and make sure you are finding time alone in yourself to accumulate to cultivate who you are, in a personal setting, to figure out your self-worth alone and not attach it to other people. So for gate 21, your self-worth has to be, if you have gate 21, don't feel like you need to be, if you get help or if you manage, don't be afraid of people controlling you. Just learn how to control yourself, pretty much. for gate 51 people who have that is make sure that you are making that shock and that arousingness a part of who you are and not being afraid of that. Gate 26 people, integrity, integrity, integrity. You can have all the wealth, you can have all the prestige, you can have all the power. Just make sure you do it with integrity. And getting there, selling with integrity, selling your vision with integrity. All of that is about integrity. And then gate 40 people is really about cultivating yourself by yourself and not depending on people, not attaching to the wrong people. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. But this is just a little snippet of some of the centers. I'm going to do some more talk about the centers and the gates around them. I did do I did a beta course last year on the centers, which I'll be releasing that in 2020 for sure, because it's done. I just have to get it redesigned and fix it, upload, do some more videos. But that is going to be released. And I'm not sure what it's going to be called yet. I'm changing the name, but that's done. So you will have a course on that in 2020 about the centers and about the gates around the centers, because it's really important. And that's going to be a spinoff of something else I'm doing with the gates. And people are always like, oh my gosh, you can't wait for your products. And neither can I, but I'm one person. And so it just takes me a longer time to do things, because I don't just do this. Yes, I am fully self-employed, but I have, I like to say I have 2 other businesses. One is, besides this, coaching here, human design stuff, strategy stuff with, entrepreneurs and stuff. But I also I'm also a business consultant for medium to large size businesses. And I actually consult with company, construction companies and, commercial electricians and fire protect, you'd be like, what? You're like, yeah, I do. I have a whole other but business for that. And then I also have a products-based business. So, it's just one person, but I'm going to be, I guess, like they say, duplicating and getting more help next year. So I don't hide, but, I'm laughing at myself because I'm just thinking about my 2020. It's going to be crazy. But anyway, enough about me, because I know you guys don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about your human design and other things. But the most important thing with the Heart and Ego Center, whatever books you can get your hand on about self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem for my undefined ego heart people, do that. Do the work, do the therapy work, do the journaling. Why do you feel lack? Why do you feel like you're not worthy? Why don't you feel like you deserve things, etc.? It will help you. And then if you have these particular gates around your ego center, make sure you work on those problems that I explained. And if you have questions, you can totally email me. And for my defined ego centers, try not to distrust people before you get to know them. A lot of defined egos, they do that. They are very distrusting with others, because they are afraid of being controlled. And if you are afraid of being controlled and you have a defined ego, you want to check and see why that is. That's really important. But other than that, that's a little bit of the ego center. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be coming to you more podcasts. I'm gonna close out the end of the year. I'm gonna be on my shit, guys. So I'm gonna close out the end of the year strong. And so 2020 will be great. And I just want to, say a little bit, because I'm gonna do an episode on Jupiter. 2020 is literally going to be a make or break year for everyone. And what I mean by that is, because Jupiter is going to be in Capricorn next year, it is going to require dedication, and dedication to yourself, dedication to your dreams and your desires, dedication to who you are and who you want to be in the world. And if you are not willing to dedicate yourself to that, that's okay. But you will not get further ahead the way you want to if you don't take the time to really push yourself next year. And I'm not saying to burn yourself out. I'm not saying to lose family and friends because you're being an asshole and you're like, oh, I'm so busy or whatever. I'm saying that if you are contemplating hiring a coach, if you're contemplating hiring a trainer, if you're contemplating writing the book, if you're contemplating starting the business, if you're contemplating asking for a raise or moving to a different department to advance your career within a corporate setting, next year is the time to do those things. Trust me. The energies are going to support you. The energies are going to support work. I didn't say hard work. I said work. They're going to support a step-by-step process. The energies are going to support a plan. So if you don't have a plan, I suggest you get one. Find someone who's doing an end of the year roundup session, get a coach, get a therapist, whatever you need to do, but have a plan, because the energies are going to support that next year. It's going to be rewarded for you planning and you acting on your plan, not for you being willing. This year was a lot of, let me just, figure it out, fly by the seat of my pants, and things that did work out for people. But next year is going to require dedication. So if you're really willing to dedicate yourself to your goals and to your dreams, next year is the time for things to happen for you. And I'm going to talk more about that on another podcast about Jupiter and Capricorn. And so that's just my advice. Trust me on this. But until next time, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. Make sure you guys have a great day filled with good vibes, great energy. And remember, don't let anybody fuck with you, because that's just not what we're doing over here for the last 7 weeks of the year and for 2020. But until next time, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at AC Brown, and also check out my website for products and services at www.acbrown.com. And until we meet again, make sure you have a great week filled with good vibes and good energy.